please give Michael a big round of applause for hosting us. And Michael, for those, I've been speaking to people all day. Many of them didn't even know what City Winery was. Give us a little, background. 16 locations now?
12 with 5 in development.
Close, yeah.
Well, let me first thank you for having me. I knew that the discount we were going to give you on the rental might get me on the stage, so I really do appreciate that, and been very humbled to listen to these large companies creating such great, climate change work. I'm very humbled to be here.
Great. No, and I think what you're doing here, and again, I think we want to go into getting to understand how sustainability is part of the core DNA of what you're building. But again, for those who don't know, music industry, venue veteran with the Knitting Factory here in New York for music fans. Why City Winery back in 2008?
Yeah. So I've been putting on shows for most of my adult life. I made a change in 2003, 2004 to want to do something like Voltaire and Candide going back to the garden, thought I was going to do a winery out west. And when my family wouldn't let me do that and we wanted to stay in New York, the idea of an urban winery became a necessity. And so did the due diligence, created a bunch of relationships with vineyards, mostly out west in California and Oregon, to ship grapes to New York City. And we opened the same week Lehman Brothers crashed in '08. So not a great time to open a gathering business, although we found out later it was even worse to move here in March of 2020. But we are essentially an urban winery where we make wine right here with grapes coming from the great terroirs around the globe, actually. And we're a music venue and event space where we get to serve the wine that we're making as well as other alcohol to people who are here.
Right.
And we think it gives us authenticity, and it certainly makes us different from Live Nation and the other music promoters out in the world.
So, we were talking, and for those of you who've grabbed the issue of Worth magazine, there's a profile of Michael. I say you sort of are an accidental environmentalist, in that it was built into the core of this business, but not necessarily initially as a sustainability effort, but more as an efficiency effort, as you thought about what this business needed to be, how to move wine, bottles, glass. A lot of the things we think about now as sustainable practices were just built into the core model, but through the lens of efficiency.
It was an accident that we started serving wine by the glass, not going into a bottle. In '09, after the crisis, in our original model where we were going to sell barrels to bankers, $13,000, you put your name on your bottle and you can give it away as a gift. That went away very quickly in '08, and we, on Varick Street where we opened, we had 300 French oak barrels filled with phenomenal world-class wine. And in the spring of '09, because of cash flow freaking out, is that a technical term? I needed a way to sell the wine. And rather than go through the TTB and all of the approvals of bottling, I simply asked the winemaker, is there any way to sell this? And he told me about how some wine, like beer, can be sold on tap, going into stainless steel using argon gas. And very quickly, that became our main wine by the glass program. When we rolled out Chicago, we started really see the barrel over there with the tap heads, and we have that as our theme. So it dressed up the idea of wine on tap, so it didn't look like beer. And now we're doing 2 million glasses of wine a year in all of our locations, and none of that ever went into a bottle. And so about 70% of the wine that we're producing never goes into a bottle. It basically is the grapes shipped locally and then made locally and sold locally. In the wine industry, the sort of the North Star is always to have direct to consumer, DTC. In our case, we're going even one step beyond and doing direct to consumer, literally right into people's bloodstreams on site. And so it's not only a very efficient way to deliver the wine, and we like to say we're kind of vessel agnostic, but financially it also works out really well because don't tell anyone, but our cost of goods on that glass of Sauvignon Blanc, is sort of like soda pop, and we charge a lot for it, and it's really good too.
Right.
But it's a good business, and it happens to be very environmentally friendly.
But there was a point that you went from thinking about sustainability as part of efficiency to really now embracing what it means around climate change and embedding it throughout your whole supply chain, from the vineyards all the way through the elimination of single-use plastics in your venues. What was that catalyst that changed it from thinking about efficiency to true sustainability? And how are you really building that into the future growth model of the business?
Well, we certainly know from all aspects, from employee retention. People, our staff like the fact that we are a green company. This is a water bottle reusable that says artist backstage. We just don't allow single-use plastic. Even when a fairly well-known musician says, I have to have Voltic in, we're sorry, you got to use this. And it doesn't come to blows, but we are really advocating for this, and it makes us feel good as a company. It just feels like it's the right thing to do. Are we making systematic change, like FedEx changing to electric vehicles? No, but if we can influence musicians a little bit, influence people, we're good promoters. So I would say we know we're having some impact, even if it's as simple as this backstage.
And we talked about all those various stakeholders, right? From your employees to the communities you operate in, to your customers. But you talked about sort of making that change requires, in many cases, incentives. And changing consumer behavior from thinking about buying a bottle of wine. I mean, even if we just think about the wine industry, getting people to originally probably use screw caps, and then boxed wine or canned wine, changing that perception is really difficult and incentivizing. And I know you're even going to the next step, and you have a bottle here of...
We both brought the props.
The props. I say, in addition to being an accidental environmentalist, you're the next generation milkman of reusable glass bottles. So rather than getting your milk delivery and them taking the empties, you're moving now into reusable bottles.
This is something we're really proud of. We aren't certain it's going to work. We're taking a bit of a gamble. We are opening a city winery in Grand Central Terminal November 1st. This was not meant to be a commercial. But it was our first time ever in a transit place where we're going to have tons of people going through and looking at how do we make money in this situation. And there are pizza stands that are selling millions of dollars of beer in cans in a paper bag for people to drink on their way home. And we're like, well, how are we going to sell wine and do it in an environmentally friendly way? And we didn't think people were going to open corks. We didn't want to go with cans. And so we came up with just a kind of a growler vessel. But then we realized, how do we get people to return them to us? And so we looked at them, why don't we just offer a $5 credit when they return the bottle? $5 is a lot more than 5 cents. There's not a lot of incentive with what we've been doing since the 70s. And we'll have a refillable station right there in Grand Central Terminal. So why not see if this could be a way to do it? And we think we'll certainly get, at least the lushes on the train back and forth, who might care about the planet and $5 to go with this program. And if this gets some bigger companies to look at a success story, which I hope we will, and I actually think we will, then that actually will serve a lot more than just what we're doing here.
So, to that point of really serving as a model and a role model for bigger industries and bigger companies, is there anything you've heard where you're like, wow, we could help? You talked about artists. Artists are coming through here. they have large platforms to talk, and they're demanding single-use plastics. How do you think, as we talk about the people in the room, can really have their own impact on making a difference as it pertains to sustainability? What are you seeing that's effective in what you're doing and how that's amplified at larger scale?
It's good having a blabbermouth personality, but I think you need to approach it with legitimate balance. We're not doing this to save the planet. I'm really glad that it's going to be very useful to, the 70% of glass that doesn't even get recycled. That's really an important thing. But we think that this actually will make money. That this as a ROI on a bottle, it's not much more than a regular bottle, and it creates a loyalty pattern. It creates a great brand for what we're trying to do. So there are legitimate market reasons that we think this will actually make money, not just be an investment for the planet. It's nice that that's the case. And
that idea of conscious capitalism, what we've been talking about, is that will really push this forward. It's still capitalism, right? People still need to make money to reinvest it.
We're way too small of a company to be, risking everything we have on purely a sustainable practice. Would we pick that over another? Absolutely, but it has to be rationalized as a business decision, and have some sort of ROI calculation.
One of the things I think we talked about last week was even in the vineyards, the use of irrigation, and even as we see global warming and this impacting all the regions, you're getting grapes from Spain or from France, that we're now having to see a move towards even water usage that once didn't exist in these vineyards. How are you seeing that sort of impact just the overall winemaking business?
Well, the summer heat this year is unprecedented all over the world. I was in Spain, and they're making decisions for the first time in the history of winemaking in Spain to allow for irrigation, or else they're going to lose all the vines. It's one of the things about the French word terroir is you deal with the vintage that comes to you. And if some years are hot and not a lot of moisture, well, you deal with that. 2003 was this classic vintage of being really hot in Europe, but some winemakers make great wine out of that year. And that's just the way wine has in Bordeaux and Burgundy for 1,000 years. Right now it's changing for the first time ever. And they're looking at what would be the rule. Like, you don't want to allow too much of a yield on the hectares of grapes, but what can be the rule by allowing just a little bit of water, since there doesn't seem to be any naturally coming. The harvests are all earlier. There's a real problem in wine. There's going to be a real shortage this year, and the supply has gotten harder.
Right. Well, we'll all get a chance at the end of today to taste your wine and enjoy here. Michael's book is available out if you haven't grabbed one at the reception desk. Michael, thank you so much for hosting us. And
it's my pleasure. Thank you for all being here. Really appreciate it.